It's me, James, and I'd like to welcome you to the latest Kipper-Cast reading. We're going to be doing one for the month of June 2025, and as I say that out loud, I cannot believe that 6 months of the year have come by. I can't believe it. The year's moving by so quickly. And so if you're here for the first time, I'd like to say welcome and thank you for taking time to stop by for a visit and check out this video. And if you are a returning viewer and subscriber, I'd like to say thank you for circling back around and thank you for supporting the work that goes into the channel. So if you're no stranger to these Kipper-Cast readings, then I'm going to be working with the deck on the table, which is my personal Kipper deck, which is the Kipper of Himm. I made this for myself in 2023. And so I wanted to highlight the different categories of Kipper, and so each card has a different colored border based on its category. And actually, this Kipper-Cast readings that I've been doing since the year started is actually an extension of the Kipper Cards by Category series that I started for those who wanted to know more about how the Kipper cards are broken down by category and how those categories interact with one another in readings. So I will be making a point to put a link to the playlist if you want to check out other installments in this now ongoing series. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and shuffle the cards. And as I shuffle, I'm just going to share for those who may be landing on this video for the first time that the Kipper-Cast is actually a monthly video reading, and I use a 9-card box. So we're going to be shuffling the cards and pulling 9 cards and reading those. And like I said, the intention is to explore what the story could be that's going to unfold in the month of June 2025. I'm going to stop there in terms of the shuffling, and now I'm going to cut the deck. And fan the cards out. And now I'm looking for 9 cards in the fan that are getting my attention. And that simply means the ones that appear to be standing out. A lot of them are over here on this left side of the fan this month. Come out 2. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have one more, and I see it right here. Okay, so those are the 9 cards. I'm going to pick the remainder of the deck up, and I'm going to move that to one side. I'm going to count back. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the reason why I do that is because I like to lay the cards out in the order that they were selected. So we're going to put 3 cards here for the top row. Then 3 cards beneath that for the second. And the final 3 cards on the bottom. All right. So we have the 9 cards laid out. And what I usually do when I work with a 9-card box, or we call it a 9-card square, or 3 by 3. I start in the middle, so card 5 is the focus for the month ahead, and here we have gloomy thoughts. Okay, so now I'll hold the card up closer, and in my deck, like I said, I color-coded the borders, and so the yellow bordered cards are the cause and effect cards. And so the way this is going to work with gloomy thoughts, before I go into the meaning of it as the focus, is that the card in front of the gentleman, this is a directional cue, so the card in front of the gentleman will be the effect of the gloomy thoughts. And then behind it will be the cause. So this is the cause, this is the effect, okay? So now let's talk about gloomy thoughts as a card in terms of its meanings. So now this is a card that can talk about one's thinking, but it usually leans towards more pessimistic type thinking. So pessimism, confusion, doubt, uncertainty. It's also known as murky thoughts in some Kipper cards. So it can be about the more challenging aspects of mind. Yeah. So it could be having a negative outlook, like I said, pessimism, sometimes leaning towards depression, that kind of thing. And I chose that aspect really with the image because it looks to me like the man is kind of zoned out, if you will. So those are some aspects of the card. And we'll come back to that when we look at the cause and effect. So after I look at the focus card, right? So coming back to, so the focus here for the month of June could be a lot of pessimistic or negative outlook on life based on what's happening around us, right? So maybe we're seeing what's going on outside of us and it's causing this type of thinking or this type of mindset, yeah? Okay. So I go move to card 1. This is a card that shows up quite often in these Kipper-Casts. Okay, so here we have the main person 1 card. So let's talk about this. So this is one of the 2 significator cards in the deck, and which is why it has a more neutral background. This card would suggest a person who is male. So this could be an actual male or somebody who's male presenting, who's going to have a significant role or part in the unfolding of the month. And actually, it's very interesting. So this is known as a trigger card for me. So this could be a man who's triggering off the events that could be unfolding in the course of the month. So now in the story of Kipper, any man who's watching this video, this would be your card. And so for me as a reader, this could also be my card. However, in my particular deck, I made a card, main person 1, that has my likeness on it. And right before getting on camera, I took that card out, from the deck and put it in its container. And I specifically chose this one. So I'm going to opt out from this particular reading and go with that. If I'm looking at it for myself, let's just say I did the reading for myself and this man turned up, I would look at it as a man who is not me, yet still has a significant role in the unfolding of the story that's being presented here, right? And so now there's a directional cue, and I like when I film these because I try and leave space on opposite sides of the square just in case I need to pull another card. So I will make a mental note to myself to pull a card to see what he's facing, because right now this would be all the past, right? So this could be some reflection on the past actions of a man, and we are looking at it negatively or with some negativity and some pessimism, right? But this would be a reflection of his past because he's not facing any of these cards. Actually, it could also be a man who wants to exit a particular situation because he's looking outside of the box, right? So those are some things I want to offer. Again, a man who's playing a significant role or part in how the story unfolds, a man who we are reflecting on, gloomy thoughts, past actions of this person, right? Or a person who wants to exit a situation and maybe one of his own making. A couple of other things that are coming to mind that I should say. So if it's not about the past actions, another possibility is that the man is going to be challenged because a lot of these cards being behind him would be considered inauspicious placement. So these cards would all be considered inauspicious placement because they're behind him. And then these cards here would be something that he would have to overcome because he is literally on top of these cards. Yeah, so those are some other aspects to consider. Okay, so then once I look at card 5 and card 1, then I look at card 9 to see how things could potentially end up. And so here we have Young Gentleman, a card, again, that shows up quite often in these monthly Kipper-Cast readings. So Young Gentleman would be somebody who's younger than main person 1. right? So this could be somebody, if it's in a family context, I always go with the family context first. Then this could be somebody who is a younger brother, a son, a cousin, again, with the idea that this could be somebody who's male or male presenting. So there's always that. Or it could be somebody who is in business because he's wearing a business suit. So I lean more towards, for me, when I'm reading for myself, that I tend to liken this to a business person. So this could be either another business person, or this is describing, if we mirror the cards, describing this person, main person one, as a business person, because this card can represent business and finance. Or that there's going to be something of a financial nature in terms of the outcome. Now, I find it interesting that between these two, if this is a relationship between two people, let's say an older person, older male, and a younger male, then there's some sort of negativity or pessimism between them, because this card is in between them, right? Or if this is about the prior actions of a particular man who's playing a significant role or part in the situation, then it could be, how is this affecting people who are in business, right? So there's that too, as well. And not just business, but, of course, if it's affecting them, their businesses, and it's affecting them financially as well. And so the first thing that comes to my mind would be things having to do with tariffs, right? That was a big thing over the course of the previous month, right? So that would be something that could still be playing out and having effect on people, and not for the positive, right? So that's what I'm seeing with young gentlemen as the outcome. So now let's turn all the other cards over, start taking a look at them. And here we have change as the second card. So the green border implies movement. This is a movement card. And I didn't talk about the category of young gentlemen. So that's a purple bordered card. That is one of the other people cards in the deck, aside from the significator cards. Okay. So next card is Hope Big Water. The red border is a stop card. Next card here is another stop card. This is Thoughts. In traditional Kipper cartomancy, this is known as his thoughts, right? So it's significant that, to me, that it's underneath the main person one card. Okay. Card 6 is Letter, another stop card. Here we have Get Together. This is a connector card because of the pink border. And then card 8 is another connector card, which is Short Illness. And this card also appeared last month, because I remember it was also next to another connector card in the previous month's reading. I believe that connector card was Court Official. Okay, so here are all the cards. So now let's take a look at them. And I'm going to start by looking at the rows and then maybe the columns to see what kind of information they will offer. So going with the top row. Okay, so now here we have change behind main person one. So change usually represents a change in circumstances, and it being a movement card, it has a directional cue. It moves away from this card here on its left and towards the card on the right. So here we have movement away from a man, right? A change in circumstances. So there's a change in circumstances pertaining to a man. Could be movement away from a man and towards Hope Big Water. So now Hope Big Water is a card that can represent dreams, hopes, wishes, goals. It is also about something that could be taking place overseas. It is known as the going abroad card. So that's a way of acknowledging something overseas, something in a foreign land, things like that. So there is some movement away from a man, and it may be regarding something foreign and overseas. Now the anchor, I'm going to use the anchor as a symbol on the card. So there's an anchor here. So the anchor can symbolize stability, security, something that's fixed, right? Because anchors, as a function, keep things in place, right? So we have an interesting dichotomy here with movement and then something fixed and stable, right? So it could be a movement, change in circumstances towards a greater sense of stability and security, right? Or a change in circumstances that leads to something appearing on the horizon more hopeful, right? Again, going with the idea that this is called hope. So that's what I'm seeing there, right? So again, could be a change in circumstances, moving away from a man and maybe his particular actions and moving towards a greater sense of stability and security. But again, I have a feeling like this is going to pertain to something, foreign. And when I say foreign, I'm going with the idea that I am filming this here in the United States. So I'm talking about something outside of the United States for me, just in terms of perspective. Yeah? Okay. All right, so now the next row. Now, this is where we get to talk about cause and effect, right? So let's do that. So here we have, remember, gloomy thoughts. Gloomy thoughts, it's about a negative outlook, pessimism, confusion, doubt, uncertainty. Yeah? Okay. So now this would be the cause behind it. So letter is a card that usually talks about good news. In some decks, it's called pleasant letter or good news. But here I'm going to go with the idea that it could be talking about paperwork, documentation, something in writing, because letter can represent all forms of communication. So there is some aspect of communication that is the cause for the negative outlook or the pessimism, yeah? And then if we knight this, knighting is a process where you count over 2 cards and then down 1. So if we knight letter, it knights to main person, right? So again, so this is paperwork or documentation that is connected to a man, right? And so now if I'm talking about things like tariffs that were affecting business people, yeah, this could also be the passing of the big beautiful bill in the House of Representatives recently. Again, that's an event that took place here in the United States, right? And how that's going to have people having a negative outlook or a pessimistic outlook on its future, right? What it's going to do in the future. But now it could also be, again, all forms of communication. So if it's not paperwork or documentation, it might be something that's posted, right? So that could be something on social media, right? A social media post. It could be an email, text message. Those are things that are written. It could be a phone call or a voicemail, keeping it maybe more mundane and relative to maybe in certain individuals, right? This might be a phone call, voicemail, any form of communication, but it's going to be something that's going to be the cause of gloomy thoughts, right? So now let's talk about the effect. Or I was about to say the outlook, but the effect. So here we have thoughts, right? And so thoughts is a card that talks about thinking. In this case, it would be analysis, right? So it could be people maybe analyzing the contents of the paperwork or documentation that I talked about with letter, right? And they're doing it through a lens of pessimism or negativity, right? So this is research, analysis. This is planning for the future, right? And how interesting is it that it's in the future if we're talking about outlook, right? With gloomy thoughts, the man in gloomy thoughts looking this way. This would be looking ahead, right? So this would be planning for the future. Could be scheduling things, getting things on the calendar. That's one of my personal meanings for this card. Now, interestingly enough, it knights to young gentlemen, counting 2 over, going down 1. For me, this card, and I based this on my experience when I was working with the Fin de Siècle Kipper. So if you're familiar with that deck, you might want to pull the card out and take a look at it. In that image, there is a man who is sitting at his in his art studio, and he's got a painting of a woman on a canvas, yeah, with brushes and tools, artist tools, in a container next to him. So for me, if I'm seeing that image, it could be about creativity. And if I combine these two, it reminds me of my brother, who is a visual artist, a painter. So this card would come up a lot in reference to him. So this could be something about having a creative approach to something, right? So a need for creativity, and it may be around this news or this paperwork or documentation or communication, right? There may be something of a creative nature to it. But for me, it may be more about scheduling something. So this might be like if something is being put into paper or documented, then this could be how it rolls out, right? And we're taking a look at it, we're analyzing it, we're doing research around it, right? That kind of thing. And interestingly enough, both of these cards being stop cards, when there are a majority of them in a reading, it usually represents something that may not be progressing or moving rapidly or quickly, right? So this might be gradual progress because we only have the one movement card out of the 9. But again, thoughts could be his thoughts, you know. So this could be the man's thinking about the situation, about his actions. Could be research, analysis, things being scheduled on the calendar. So it could be like, you know, we're looking at we're being encouraged to look at specific dates in terms of rolling something out or in terms of a timeline. So that's what I'm seeing with thoughts. Okay, now let's go down to the bottom row, and here we have get together. So now get together, and I like it with thoughts in this regard. So get together is a card of hanging out, getting together with other people. Usually the rule of thumb with connector cards is that they all have 2 people on the cards, right? So there's 2 people on get together, and then I'm jumping over here for a second, and there's 2 people on short illness, which is why they're connector cards, okay? But coming back to get together, so this could be also about meetings. So here, when I get thoughts and get together, this could be a meeting or an appointment that's being put on the calendar, right? Something that's being scheduled, right? And then with the man at the top, it could be a man being called into a meeting or scheduling a meeting or being a part of that process, right? But now get together can also be with the idea of hanging out, something that's going to affect the public or something of a social nature, going with the aspect of the card. So again, for me, this could be meetings, appointments, get-togethers, hanging out, something of a public nature or social nature, right? But then with thoughts, again, it's about something being put on the calendar. Okay, and then here with short illness, like I said last month, is a card that can talk about taking a break, getting some rest. It's a card about healing and recovery, right? And so if again we go with this as a possibility of the man's actions, prior actions, precipitating the effects that are spilling over into this month, then this could be about people in a state of recovery and recuperation and trying to heal, right? And so that might not necessarily be illness in terms of the physical body and being sick, right? It could be other forms of recovery, right? And then this card, because it's a pink border, connects. Connector cards usually connect to cards on either side. So this card is connected to young gentlemen, right? So one of the other things I want to mention, because it did happen, and I saw a headline before I got on camera, is that I talked in last month's reading about Elon Musk possibly leaving his role with the White House in terms of the DOGE, the Department of Governmental Efficiency, right? And so I just saw a headline this morning, like I said before I got online, that talked about that Musk is officially leaving the White House, right? So this card And the reason why I'm highlighting that is because this card can mean retirement. Here we have a man who's in bed, right? And so for me, this can represent retirement because it talks about the idea of retiring for the evening, which is an old expression back in the day when I was younger. I used to hear that a lot. I'm going to retire for the evening, and that was a nice way of saying I'm going to bed. So for me, this card can represent retirement. And with the young gentleman facing this card, it could be a business person who may be facing retirement. And so that could just be a way of somebody who's leaving a certain type of business or a certain form of business or a certain form of work, right? Now, with this card being tied to get together, let's just say somebody is retiring from business, then get together, because it connects to this idea of retirement, might be, a get together, party, some kind of celebration, acknowledgement for this person in some shape, form, or fashion. So it may not be Musk, it may be another person I'm talking about in this particular context. But it would be maybe something of a formal kind of get together, because I always look to the suit that he's wearing as formal attire, right? So it could be that as well, too, like somebody's retiring and there's going to be some form of get together or celebration or public acknowledgement of this, right? Now, if I go with that, it could be that if it is, let's just come back to Musk for a minute. If it is Musk, then some people may actually be celebrating that, right? Get together. Right? And now I'm noticing that get together nights to letter. So there may be something about a meeting or some sort of appointment, and it's going to be connected to some form of communication or documentation or paperwork. Now, also too, with this line, I'm seeing the sense of there may be a business person who maybe is going to be asked to retire or take a break because of a meeting, or it's going to happen in a meeting context or experience, a meeting, an appointment, something of nature where it happens in that way, and then maybe the news becomes public, right? In that way. Now, I will also say I'm looking at directional cues in terms of the columns. And here we have young gentleman with letter above him. Usually for me, a person card with a card above it is what's on the person's mind. So this particular business person may be thinking about communication, conversation, paperwork, or documentation, right? And then, what's the goal, or wanting to achieve some kind of stability, but it's in reference to some sort of communication, documentation, paperwork, so forth and so on. Right? So that is what I'm seeing for the cards in terms of the rows. Let's take a quick look at the columns. I really already talked about this one, right? So let's take a look here. Here we have change, right? So here we have, maybe if we read the cards vertically, here we have a change in outlook or a change in circumstances, right? Due to negative outlook, pessimism, right? I mean, like this would have to be overcome, right? And then here we have, and it may lead to, people in a state of recovery. So there may be some aspect of wanting change around this idea of recovery, because the current state is pessimism or a negative outlook. And I already touched on this one. So the one final thing I'll do to wrap this up is I remembered that I said I was going to make a mental note about pulling a card and putting it in front of the main person one card. So let's go ahead and do that. So you may see this on camera, but what I'm doing is I'm shuffling the cards with the idea that I'm going to pull a card for main person one to put in front, to give us a better idea of maybe what this person could be facing, right? Because the idea of him not having a card in front of him says that the future may be uncertain or not clear, because we don't have a card there. But we're going to fix that. All right, so I'm going to stop there. I'm going to go ahead and cut the deck one more time. You may be able to see that on camera. Now I'm going to fan the cards out one more time. You may be able to see some of the fan there, but I'm looking for a card, and this one jumps out immediately, so I'm going to put that in front. I'm going to scoop the rest of the cards up. Now we have a card in front of the main person one. So now let's see what the card is. And here we have another connector card. Okay. So we have the marriage card. So now the marriage card can be about... All right, and I am back. Full disclosure, I was working with pulling an extra card for the main person one card, and I looked in my viewfinder on my camera and realized that I was out of time, and so there was a blinking light. So I don't know where it left off because I'm still filming, and I'll find out during the editing phase. But I'm just going to recap again because I don't know where exactly it cut off. So what I did was I wanted to pull a card and put it in front of main person one to see what the person could be facing. And so I shuffled the cards on camera, cut the cards, fanned them out, and picked marriage. So now I was going to talk about marriage when I looked into the viewfinder and saw that I had run out of time. Okay, so now the marriage card is a connector card because it has a pink border, right? So we have another connector card. So it connects... Marriage is connected to this person. So it could be describing the man as somebody who is married. I'm going to go with the idea that it's talking about a contract, an agreement, some kind of merger, right? And that would make sense if we go with the idea that letter, which knighted to the man, is a card that talks about paperwork and documentation. So there is some sort of contract, some sort of agreement, right? Going maybe even further with letter being connected to young gentlemen. This could be something having to do with a merger in the business sense, right? And so that would be like two companies merging together, right? And that would be another form of contractual agreement, right? But now it could also be that this card is about promises, right? If we go with the idea that, and I highlighted this in the image, that the couple is showing their wedding rings, right? And so during the wedding ceremony, right, when they're exchanging rings, they make all sorts of pledges and promises to each other as the rings are being placed on the fingers, yeah? So this is a card that can talk about promises and pledges and vows and oaths, things like that, that people make with one another in significant relationships. Okay, and so now this could be the man and his promises, right? Or that he's going to be making promises in the future because now he's facing this card, right? But it could be the promises or pledges or vows connected to a man, right? And maybe with the idea of gloomy thoughts here in the middle, it's about maybe the promises that he has made and not kept. Yeah? And again, that would be depending on perspective, right? For some people, this person may have made promises or pledges and not kept them. And in other circumstances, other groups of people, other demographics, this person may have kept every promise, right? So it may just depend on context, right? So again, it could be a relationship between a particular person and a businessman or business people, right? Going with young gentlemen, and and promises, maybe, and even maybe future promises that this person is going to make throughout the month of June, right? And then seeing how that unfolds, right? The other thing here is that I'm noticing a knighting connection between marriage and get-together. So now here's the difference between the two. Get-together is more casual, and this is more serious, commitment, I'm really engaged, that kind of thing, right? So there's here is a more serious relationship or connection than get-together, right? So there's that. Now there's this card is a connector card, so I could pull another card, and I'm feeling like, well, why not, right? I'm not going to run out of time this time because I took the time to delete some content on the camera. So I'm going to pull one more card to see what the connection here is. cut the deck one more time. And I'm looking for a card, and I'm going to pick this card. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the cards up. And let's see what we have here. And here we have the young lady card. Okay, so here we have another person card because it is a purple bordered card. So now, putting this down, so now here we have a promise or a pledge or a commitment between a man who's playing a significant role or part in the month ahead and then a younger lady, right? So she is the counterpart to young gentleman. So she usually represents a younger woman. So this would be somebody who's younger than main person one, right? So this could be in a familial context. This could be a younger sister. This could be a daughter, younger cousin, a niece. But if it's not familial, then she can represent, and I talked about it before with the thoughts card, and interestingly enough, she knights to that card. So this could be about creativity, because this card as a theme can represent beauty and creativity. So again, we have this idea about a creative approach to a situation, right? If it's not about a person, right? Because the young lady has a dual meaning, just like the young gentleman, right? But now, going back to maybe a personal type thing, she can also represent one's BFF. So that could be, you know, best friend, girlfriend, something of that nature. So this could be a man who's making a serious commitment with his girlfriend, right? So this could be engagement. So there may be something of that unfolding, right? But it could also be a man is making a promise or a pledge or a commitment to maybe young women, just generally speaking. Right, and as I'm looking here with get together, you know, and something more casual, you know, this is just a sweeping generality, but there may be something involving a younger demographic because we have young lady and young gentleman. So this could be somebody who may be reaching out to younger people in terms of making a promise, a pledge, something of that nature. You know, being committed to some way in terms of the younger set. But if it's not, then this could be about beauty, creativity, things of that nature. And I'm going to add another thought here, and this will be my final thought, is I'm seeing, again, the fin de siècle Kipper, and in that particular deck, the young lady is called privileged lady or privileged woman, right? So there may be something about privilege here with this card, because I'm seeing that distinct title. So there may be something involving the privilege or privileges of certain demographics that's going to unfold this month. And it may have something to do with their future. So on that note, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this week's Kipper-Cast. This month's Kipper-Cast reading. So again, this has been the Kipper-Cast for the month of June 2025. If you made it to this point in the video, even with my glitch, I thank you so much for giving me the gift of your time. And as I wrap up, I'm going to look forward to seeing you in this space for our next Kipper-Cast reading that will be for July 2025. So until then, I'm hoping that you're having a great day. I hope that you have a great month, and take care.